This program is produced by Eagle Mountain Apostolic Resource Center. To find additional episodes of this program, as well as other content, visit eaglemountain.tv.
I have never, I'm going on record right now, I've never had a harebrained idea.
He's had lots of ideas that have hair on them.
Did you just say I've had lots of ideas with hair on them?
Yes. Okay.
Oh my goodness. What?
The devil?
I found him.
Why am I not surprised that he's in here?
He's over here in this bucket. There he is. Mr. Sin! Not bothering us anymore.
How are you doing there, Foxy?
Such a beef wit.
Do you know who you're talking to? I'm Mr. Sin. You can't talk to me like that. You don't have to be rude.
I said beef wit.
Beef wit, that's even worse. No, I'm not a fan of that, but I am a fan of finding out what you're doing after this show. Maybe we could go grab some drinks or something. What do you say?
No thanks.
Hey everyone, welcome to Together We Build. My name is Chris Behnke. I'm here with Prudence O'Hare, and I am so excited because we are kicking off Season 3. Uno, dos, tres. Season 3.
Can you also say that in Japanese?
Ichi, ni, san. Yes, Season 3, Season san of Together We Build. It's been amazing. I can't even believe we're at 3 seasons, but we are. And all last season, I said I was going to stop asking you how you're doing, so I've stopped. I'm no longer going to do it. Instead, I have a list of questions that I can ask. They're actually dinner party questions. So, first one is, what was your first job?
My first job.
Yeah, your first occupation.
Was probably working at the family truck wrecking yard, semi-truck wrecking
at the
yard.
family junkyard.
Yep. My dad took us when we were really little, and we would pick up little scraps of metal off the ground to put
Did you fill a 5-gallon bucket kind of thing?
Well, he'd like us to have, but we didn't make it that far. Anyway, he paid us a couple of coins here and there.
So the couple of, were they gold coins at least?
I wish.
Come on. So the rumor out on the internet webs is that you actually were working like at 6 years old in a dress, probably a greaseball muddy dress, picking up bolts.
Yeah.
Is that actually a fact or is that like a fiction?
No, it's a fact. Dad liked his girls to look like girls.
Yeah.
So we had work dresses and work tights, and I mean, I didn't think anything of it.
I wouldn't have.
So
I'm giving that the cheer. Mm-hmm. So it's Chris Behnke, Prudence O'Hare. This is the start of season 3, and we've got Buckley joining us. He's trying to take a nap, but he is. We'll see how he does. I don't know. Maybe he'll be in every episode. I don't know. But nice thing about this new format, not sitting at the table, is you can't touch this cheers button. So that's going to be real nice.
Button, the emergency Bigfoot sounds.
Excuse me, what?
Yeah.
What is it?
Buckley likes this one, actually.
What is that? What is that we just heard?
That's a snort.
A Bigfoot snort?
Yeah. I suspect he's probably rummaging through somebody's bag looking for Jack Links.
The beef jerky stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Messing with Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we also have the 1,200 words you should know to sound smart. Essential words.
So we're all going to get edumacated.
Sophisticated person should be able to use.
Before we go into the trivia, toss down a word, drop it on us. Just
so here's
drop
one
the
that's
word
kind
on
of
us.
ironic to this book, but it's great because this book actually has the pronunciation, because a lot of these
Pronunciation, you mean?
I'm just like, what?
The pronunciation?
And then it gives you a sample of
you
how
the
it
cheer
should
for
be
that
used.
Later.
So how about
Cheers
this
to me
one?
later.
Arcane. Have you ever heard this word before?
Yeah, it's arcane.
Are you telling the truth?
Yes.
You've heard this?
Yes, but now you're going to make me say the definition. But let me read. You tell me
You
that.
don't know
you
the
tell me that,
definition.
and we'll see if that book's right.
You don't know it, and that's why you won't
Arcane.
say it.
I feel like it's like old and not relevant anymore.
No, okay. It's strange and mysterious, understood by only a few.
Okay,
So this
I had
whole
the right
this
idea.
whole book
Ish.
of words is basically that. So here's the sample. Bill's arcane knowledge of all Lexus models and their accessories is just a waste of gray matter.
Bill was a stabilizer, 100%, no cap, 100%.
Yeah. So
I'll tell you that right now. Okay, so here's the deal. We're going to keep doing trivia. We're going to, by Prudence's request, we're switching to animal trivia. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But we're going to do that. You ready?
yeah.
Okay. Trivia question number 1 of season 3 is, what is a group of cats called? What is a group of cats called?
Oh, why did
Oh, I
I
don't
pick
have the no
animal
button.
trivia?
I got the yes button. Come on now.
Kittens?
They are kittens, but what's
A
a
litter.
group of them? Ooh, litter makes sense. In fact, I think litter's right, but it's actually a clouder.
Clouder?
Yeah, clouder.
Oh boy, I
for
wouldn't
sure.
have
Oh, no,
known
litter
that.
is a group of kittens. A clouder is a group of cats. Okay, question number 2. So far,
big cats.
for season 3, so far you've got nothing right. trivia.
Well,
For question number 2, which has the thickest fur of any mammal? The thickest fur of any mammal.
thickest fur.
The thickest fur.
Walrus?
Really good guess.
Seal.
Seal. Wait, sea otter. Wait, is a sea otter and a seal the same? No, they're different.
No, they're different.
They're
They're
different.
different.
Well, you were on the right. I never even thought of that, even though I knew from when I was a little kid that those were mammals. I don't think I would have even. I feel like you get half a point for that. That's one cheer.
Half a point. Half a point.
I'm putting this over here. Buckley will help me manage the cheers button.
Okay.
Okay, the age of a lion can be determined by its
Teeth?
really good guess. That's horses.
Okay.
Nose. Nose. I'm giving you the answer.
It's nose?
It's nose.
Well,
So I
you
don't know,
get
like
out
it
a
gets
measuring
longer.
tape?
Because I think when the lion kittens are, their noses are right, and then they get longer as their head kind of develops, right?
guess
Is that true?
so.
I'm giving myself a cheer. Okay, last question. What is the only mammal capable of true flight, not gliding, true flight?
The only mammal?
The only mammal.
Is that the sound like that's what you said?
Mammal.
Oh, mammal.
Mammal. The only mammal
The only mammal capable.
of actual true flight. We're not talking about flying squirrels that are just gliding. We're talking about,
Birds?
are birds mammals?
That would be another example of, as you say, fake news.
Okay. No, birds are not mammals.
Okay. So flying squirrel is off the list.
Off.
I know. It's Dumbo.
That would be correct if Dumbo wasn't fictional. But I'm going to give you a cheer because that's a ridiculously good answer, even though it's wrong. The correct answer and the last trivia question is bats. Bats.
Oh,
so you
bats.
actually scored 0.
Bats have really fun, cute little faces.
Bats.
Have you ever watched one eat a banana?
Yes, because yesterday you pulled this up on Facebook and showed it to me. So there you have it. So, okay. So, Prudence. Did we even say the title of this? So the title of this episode is When You Find Yourself in a Joseph Season.
Is this the type of season that just creeps up? Like there's no weather warning?
Weather warning? It's not like that. It's more like you're driving along and all of a sudden you're listening to some fun song. You're on a road trip and you're listening to some fun song on the radio like Life is a High, and everybody in the car is singing along, and then all of a sudden it goes, This is an emergency. You have entered a Joseph season. Buckle your seatbelts because the next long period of time is going to be unfortunate. This is not a test. I feel like that's more accurate. Can you relate?
Yeah, except for we didn't really get fair warning like that.
You're saying that's not even fair warning? Remember when we lived in Oklahoma? So this is definitely a side journey, but it's worth it.
Okay.
We moved to Oklahoma when we were in our early 20s, early 20s, right? Not
Yeah,
late.
I was
Early
23.
20s.
You were 25.
You were 23. I was 25. So that's early. That's early enough. And we moved there and we lived there. We actually worked in a children's home. And
From Oregon. We moved from Oregon.
Moved from Oregon.
Context.
We moved to Oklahoma, where the wind comes whipping down the plain. Okay. And we're driving along, and our whole lives we lived in Oregon. And every so often you're listening to the radio, and then this is a test of the emergency broadcast system that comes on. Okay. So we're driving along in our new state, feeling real cool. And all of a sudden the same noise comes on, and just like normal, we're not even thinking anything of it. And it goes, "This is not a test of the emergency broadcast system. There is a hurricane warning in the following counties."
Oh, tornado.
Oh, yeah. Or not hurricane, tornado.
Tornado.
Tornado warning in the following counties. And they list all of these counties.
And I'm in the passenger seat saying, what county are we even in?
What county are we in? We had no idea. And you didn't even have like smartphones back then. So it's not like you could whip out the internet and tell you what county are you in.
Yeah.
And they're like, if you're in the following counties, get underground now. And we're just like,
some rat. Well, let's just hope this car holds.
Yeah, that's not a Joseph season. That's like
Yeah.
more short. But a Joseph season, let's fully dig into this thing.
Okay,
So the Joseph
right.
season. So first if you don't know, so Joseph, if you go to Genesis and you whip over to like 37, chapter 37 or 36.
It was 37.
Chapter
Genesis
37 or so. For a couple chapters, it's not a super short story, but it's one of the absolute best, I think, for a lot of reasons, because there's so many lessons inside of it. But you'll find a story, and I'm going to summarize it in like, what should we do? 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, so Joseph.
I'll add some details.
So when I get things incorrect, you can hit the fake news and then correct my bad theology. Okay, so the Joseph story, basically, he was the favorite of his father for a couple reasons. He was one of two kids from Rachel, the woman who he really loved. And so his brothers weren't fond of him. They were not fans.
Oh, this guy had a couple of different wives with several children. So
We're done with Joseph's dad.
yeah, Joseph's dad.
So so he already kind of wasn't like in the best graces with his brothers. And the whole family is really a family of dreamers. So they dreamed often, and they heard the Lord through their dreams. And so he dreamed a couple of dreams. And in both of those dreams, they're different dreams. We're not going to go into all that. But in both of those dreams, he saw himself ruling over his brothers and his parents. And so he did what, young, foolish people that get dreams like that might do.
You don't even have to be young.
And he told them, remember, they already didn't like him that much. They already didn't really like him.
Well, his dad liked him.
He was his dad's favorite, teacher's pet, okay? So his brothers weren't fans.
And he was the youngest, too.
And he was the youngest.
He was the youngest.
He was the youngest. At least at the beginning of the story, he was the youngest.
He was 17 at the beginning of the
So
story.
he tells these guys the story. He tells them the dream, and they're like, are you for real? Because basically he's saying, hey guys, I know I'm the youngest, but all y'all are going to bow down to me eventually. So this made them so mad that they decided to kill him. And they go to kill him, and then they're like, you know what? Instead of killing him.
No, only one brother said that.
So
one brother saved him.
One brother, the second youngest, right? Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
One brother's like, instead of killing him, let's make a buck and actually sell him to these gypsies.
Actually, this is what happened.
Okay, but this whole story is only supposed to be 2 minutes.
Okay, just real quick. So it was Reuben. He put a stop to the killing
Not the sandwich.
of Joseph. Not the sandwich. But maybe it's related somehow.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. So he says, let's just put him in this pit for right now. And it probably intended on letting him loose, I'm imagining.
Yes.
So he
him
wasn't
in a
there when the band of foreigners came through.
Right.
He wasn't there.
Reuben wasn't.
Reuben wasn't.
Yeah.
So he didn't know that his brothers were busy selling off Joseph.
So they sold him to some gypsies.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need to fast forward the story to make it quicker. So he finds himself in a series of situations for a lot of years that are bad. So he gets sold.
Gets
to these
hauled off to
gypsies.
Egypt.
He gets called off to Egypt.
Hauled off to Egypt, and then sold to Potiphar.
Then he's sold as a slave to Potiphar, and then he gets wrongly accused by Potiphar's wife, gets thrown in jail for rape. He's in jail. He's in jail for a long time, and then he interprets some guys' dreams that were servants of the king, and he says, hey, don't forget about me when you get out. So he tells them their dreams. The one guy gets out, goes to the king, totally forgets until the king has a dream that no one can interpret. And then the guy remembers, oh, yeah, there's this guy I met in prison like 2 years ago, and he can interpret the dream. So he brings him, he interprets the dream, and basically he realizes that the dream is that there's going to be a big period of famine. So the king is like, oh, my goodness, I need to put you over everything to manage all of that. So what's interesting is in all of these situations, in Potiphar's house, he was sold into slavery, in prison and serving the king. In all those situations, even though it was like not a good situation at all, not one you'd want to be in, like who wants to be in prison, who wants to be sold as a slave? In all those situations, he actually was in every situation basically promoted and promoted and promoted. So even though he was in prison, he was actually running the prison. Even though he was a slave to Potiphar, he was actually running all of Potiphar's stuff, household and everything. So I think it's very interesting. So when we say Joseph's season, just to set the context for this episode, when we say Joseph's season, we're talking about a season in which you have heard from the Lord, prophetic words, dreams, you believe about yourself, you have goals, aspirations, whatever, of something to be a certain way. And the certain way is it's awesome, right? Like, hey, I've got a prophetic word for you, and you're going to like start a company, and the company's going to change the world and save lives. And you've got that, and you believe it, and you know it's true. You know it's from the Lord. But then for this long period of time, like everything doesn't work. Like none of that works out. You don't have that. Your life, at least from a earthly perspective, seems to be a nightmare. Things aren't working. So like for Joseph, he was, sold into slavery and in the prison and, captive in Egypt, and all these things, they didn't seem right. They didn't seem to be in line with the actual prophetic dream that he had received from the Lord, that he was actually going to have great authority and his life was going to be like good. And so that's when we say Joseph's season, that's really what we're talking about now. Prudence, is there anything out of that story that we need to make sure we reference before we really get into this? Because it's long. It's like 3 chapters in Genesis, which, by the way, you should go read the story if you don't know it.
I think the basic idea and understanding and principle of what we all need to be looking at is the fact that he started understanding and getting words from the Lord about the future many years before it ever happened. And he had to go through an enormous amount of testing and growth and stretching and discomfort and all of those things. And he still held on to those words in his heart, and also still served the Lord faithfully through it all, even though he didn't know when those words from the Lord that had been given to him before would transpire.
Right. So a couple things right off the top, right, and then there's some questions that we kind of had written down to think through, but just to build on what you're already kind of referencing is, so you have this understanding of where you're supposed to go and a belief about your life, and maybe it's dead on, right? Maybe it's like, man, the example I just made up, maybe it is true. Like you're gonna invent something and start a company and it's gonna save thousands of lives all over the world. Okay. So that's what you have, and there's truth in that. And then that's the thing that God gave you, just that. But then as humans, we like fill in all the details between where we are now and what God said will be. And God didn't give us those details. he gave us this, and then we filled in all of these in our mind of how it's supposed to go from here to there. Does that make sense? Right, Prudence?
I guess.
So you're like,
unless it's a really big thing and you're my type, and I'm just like, I don't know how it's going to.
But in either case, what's not usually in your mind is, well, I know that sounds like an amazing thing, but probably what's going to happen between now and then is a lot of bad stuff. Even if you don't kind of work out in your mind what it's supposed to be, you're not really thinking that. But then life has a way of going sideways. Now, one thing is super important, and I think we're going to get into this, right, is with Joseph, like, I don't know, this isn't theology. I don't know if, like, how much of the nightmare he went through, the Joseph season that we now named after him, he had to have gone through. Like, we don't know if he had to really go through all those steps. Maybe he did. Maybe it was literally required to prepare him to be able to do what he needed to do in Egypt at the end. I guess we should tell the very end. So at the very end, what does happen is he's ruling over Egypt, and there's 7 years of famine, and then there's 7 years of plenty. And they have like stockpiled all of the resources because Joseph interpreted the king's dream that they needed to do that. So he was put in charge of that. His family had no food. So they actually came, and then his brothers didn't recognize him. And then they, sure enough, just like the dream from a long time before, they had to bow down to him. He was in control, and he had control over them. And it all works out. Go read the story. But the point is that in the end, what he dreamed was 100% accurate. He couldn't have predicted the difficult path on the way there. So when we get put into the difficult path, we have a couple choices to make. And one of those choices is, are we going to keep the heavenly perspective of where God's taking us in mind, even though everything around us is telling a different story? What do you think about that, Prudence?
Yeah, it's a no matter what.
What do you mean it's a no matter what?
Well, that's what we have to believe in our hearts about serving the Lord and staying in alignment with Him.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, we will serve the Lord. And we'll keep moving in alignment with Him. It's a no matter what situation. It should be.
So no matter what, we're going to choose to believe what the Lord said and not doubt.
Well, that, and I realize that we're humans and that we dip into the bowl of doubt a lot.
We dip into the bowl of doubt.
We shouldn't, but we do.
That's funny.
And sometimes, it's like, it makes me wonder, well, now do we have, is it like Candyland game where it gets sent all the way back to the beginning?
Right.
If we land on the wrong place?
Chutes and ladders, you're like, dunk, dunk, dunk. Oh, no.
It would be interesting to know. But because we don't have all of those itty bitty little details about what Joseph thought and felt, when he was in prison. Yeah. And the ugliness of whatever that was looking like.
Yeah. You're saying we don't know if he kept a good attitude?
Well, no, I think we don't know where he was dipping out of the bowl of doubt, or if he was. I mean, He was human.
Well, here's what we do know. We do know, at least here's what I would propose based on what the Bible says. I would propose that we know that he did continue to believe, and he did continue to keep a kingdom mindset, because, okay, so let's back up a second. So you believe you're headed for the palace, and then you find yourself in prison. So you're like, wait, I thought I was headed to the palace. Now I'm in prison. So now you have a choice to make. You can say, well, I'm in prison, so I need to put on the mindset of a pauper, a prisoner. Or you can say, well, it looks like a prison, but I'm called to the palace, so I'm going to keep the mindset of a prince instead of a prisoner. And we do know in Joseph's life, that's what he did. We know that because everywhere he went, he rose to a place of authority because of the impact he had on the environment. So Chris Valentin says this thing that you can put the prince in the prison. No, you can put the pauper in the palace. What does he say?
I don't know.
Okay. I'm not going to even try to do the quote. I shouldn't have mentioned it because now I don't know the quote. But basically what he's saying is that if you put a pauper in the palace, he won't become a prince. If you put a prince in the prison, then if he takes that with him and doesn't change his mindset, he'll turn the prison into a palace, if you will, because he's bringing the mindset. Is where I'm saying even make any sense at all?
So basically, if you have the right mindset and the right alignment, no matter what you travel through and go through, you're going to hold steady through it all.
That's what I believe.
Well, I think that's true.
I think that's one of the main lessons here is so we are cruising along. We think we're headed to the palace. We find ourselves in prison. How do we react?
How do we react?
How should we react?
How should we react?
Is that your way of tossing it back over here? I mean, I think the story of Joseph is literally trying to tell us that you cannot let your outward circumstance tell you about where you are in your journey and what the truth of it is. So that the truth doesn't come from what you see around you. The truth comes from what God said alone. So God said, Joseph, you're a prince. You're headed to the palace. So when he looked around and said, God, doesn't feel like a palace. Looks kind of like a prison, actually. In fact, yeah, this is a prison. I got a decision to make. Do I go, well, it's a prison, act like a prisoner? Or do I say, no, God said palace. This looks like a prison, but I'm on my way to the palace. I'm keeping a palace mindset.
Yeah. And you know, what's interesting about that story is that Joseph didn't really do anything wrong. He didn't do anything wrong to be put into prison.
No.
He did the right thing. He was wrongly accused.
He was wrongly accused and in prison.
And he got put there. But, you know, where did he go from the prison?
To the palace.
To the palace.
Yeah.
So he was in Potiphar's house before.
Right. Which is he was a slave, but it was palace-like in a way.
It was, but it wasn't as high.
So you're saying he continued no matter what. Even when he was in a palace-like environment, he still kept enough kingdom mindset to continue to head all the way to the palace. Is that what you're saying? He did. And I think that there's like different elements to this story, but like what was God doing when he allowed that accusation to happen? He was setting Joseph up to go even higher. Yeah. Even though Joseph maybe didn't really understand what was happening. It didn't look like it. God had a bigger plan. Logically speaking, it didn't look like it. So Israel was fed through the famine because Joseph was put into power. Another way to say that is Israel was fed through the famine. Well, all of the whole region. Yeah. Was fed through the famine because really it's Potiphar's wife. She deserves all the credit because she wrongly accused him. So that's why. No, I'm just kidding. But the point is that really the real thing that you're going after, which is 100% spot on, is all of the people's lives were saved through the famine because Joseph kept a heavenly mindset regardless of what the situation around him would have dictated. Yep. Yes. So where does that... Well, there's a bunch of questions here that we haven't gotten to, and I don't think we'll be able to get to all of them, but like one of them is, how can you... So seeing that, so Joseph kept this heavenly mindset. So how can you maintain a heavenly perspective when you're in the middle of it, right? So you got to remember, we have the luxury now of flipping our Bible open to Genesis, going to chapter 37 and reading this nice, neat story where we get to see what happened with Joseph all along the way. But in his life, he didn't have that book. He didn't have the story. He didn't know the famine was coming. He didn't know Egypt was coming. He didn't know Potiphar was coming. He just knew where he was. So when his brothers threw him into the pit is what he saw. When they sold him to the gypsies, the slavery is what he saw. When he was in prison, the prison is what he saw. He didn't know where he was going. So the question is when you find yourself in a season like this, how do you maintain a heavenly perspective in the midst of looking around and saying, I'm positive this is a prison? How do I keep a palace perspective?
Well, I would say that you have to get rooted firmly in knowing what the truth is.
Yeah.
Because in lean times and fattened times and famine times and supersized times, you always should be going forward in what the Lord says is truth.
Yeah.
Always. And if you're entering into a famine and you're already starving for the truth, you're going to have a hard time surviving.
Right. So you're saying you enter in advance with the mindset of truth.
Yeah. Yep. You have to know what the difference is.
Yeah.
When the devil is speaking and when the Lord is speaking.
So discernment.
Mm-hmm.
Discernment, and I think what you're getting at is what I would call heavenly perspective. So you actually have a perspective of heaven, even when it doesn't even make sense to have a perspective of heaven.
Yes. I think that the Lord has his ways of delivering peace to us. And I'm not talking about the peace symbol and the worldview peace. But he has the peace that passes all understanding. That is what Scripture says.
Unreasonable peace.
It is unreasonable. So it's really incredible how that peace can settle on us when we're in tumultuous seasons. And we don't know what to do. We don't know what's next. Everything is stacked against us. It just feels like discouragement is just raining outside, and it's really his incredible peace that lands on us and says, no, I got you. We're going to make it through this together. You're not by yourself. You're not alone. Just hang on. We're going to move through this. Tomorrow, the sun is going to shine.
So I feel like what that would be is just pure resilience in your faith with the Lord is what you're describing.
Yeah. We have to not be double-minded. That's what Scripture says.
Okay, so double-minded. So when we think about double-minded from this context, are we saying that that's my cheer button, Buckley? Are we saying that, okay, so how about this? So you feel like things just can't get any worse. You're having a heavenly perspective. You're believing in what God said, but you're in a situation that looks bad, and you're like, there's no way things get worse, and then they do. Mm-hmm. So then you're like, there's no way, this is the floor, and then you go down even lower. So what do you do in that situation to maintain this kind of tenacious thinking that you're talking about? How do you do that? How do you maintain a kingdom mindset when literally everything around you is telling you, nope, where you're headed is, prison?
Because I think that when the Lord means everything to us, when his perspective means everything to us, the world can't touch what's inside of us. It's just like Job. Right. The devil couldn't take his love for the Lord.
The schemes didn't work.
He was allowed to test him and put him through the ringer, and it didn't work.
Right. So he tried and tried and tried, but the perspective remained secure, if you will.
Yeah. So, yes, I think that's how you move through the Joseph season. That, and I think there's other components too, of course, but.
So I guess, it's kind of like, so how does God want us to approach the prison parts of that season? The parts that are like horrible?
Oh, I think that he's okay with us telling him that we don't like it. He can definitely take our authentic emotions and feelings. Even when Jesus was in the garden, he was asking for his cup to be taken from him.
Right. So so what you're saying is it's reasonable to recognize the truth and not like the situation when it sucks.
Sure. Yeah. I
think that
we need to be careful that authenticity of telling the Lord that it hurts doesn't turn into resentment and hardened hearts and all of that nonsense. You can't go down that path, but to just say, hey, this hurts. It's painful. This really is awful, what we have to go through right now. And I don't like it.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Right. And I think pretending like it's not okay, or pretending
like it doesn't hurt.
Pretending like it is okay and it doesn't bother you. I think that is kind of sets other people up that are watching and learning, and you're kind of pioneering and going before them. It sets them up for failure, because when we pretend like we like a bad situation and we're like, it doesn't matter, it's fine, and play like this kind of martyr role, we are now setting a bad example, because what happens is other people are watching, whether it's your children, family, friends, people around, it doesn't matter, but like people are watching how you handle the situation. And if you're kind of like, hey, this is no big deal, and then they get into it and they're like, man, what's wrong with me? Because I feel like I don't like the prison.
Mm-hmm. Well, isn't Psalms, which is the book of songs, mostly kind of like whining and complaining to the Lord?
I don't know that's mostly. I think it's about 30%.
It's a large amount.
30%.
But what is interesting about it is that he always ends his complaint with giving glory back to the Lord.
Yeah.
It's always sandwiched. It's like, here, blah. But
basically,
you,
life
Lord,
is
that
horrible.
You're so
I
awesome.
hate it. Why'd you abandon me, God? Everything stinks. It's bad news, bad news, bad news. But I'm still going to glorify you. Like, that's kind of the format of a lot of those frustrated Psalms. I think it's important for us, and you're touching on this, but you're not touching on it. You're directly talking about this, Prudence, that God can handle the truth of what we're feeling. By the way, he knows it anyway. So if what he really wants from us is an authentic relationship, then it's super important that we're authentic in our relationship with him. Because guess what? He's God. He spoke, the world existed. So like he already knows what we're thinking anyway.
Right.
Best not to lie about it. Do we think
that we can be sneaky with the Lord?
He's like, man, they had me fooled. I thought they loved the prison. No, like he knows. So the point is that like God's going to leverage those situations to teach us. Maybe Joseph did have to go through all those situations so he could be prepared to do what he needed to do in Egypt, so he could be prepared to treat his brothers and his father and his family the way that he needed to when the time came later on in life. But I think it's important to remember too, like, okay, so the Bible says that the Holy Spirit led Jesus into the wilderness to be tempted.
Yeah.
Which, okay, I'll just drop that real quick. The Holy Spirit led Jesus to be tempted. Okay. Mm-hmm. So sometimes the Holy Spirit leads you to be tempted. So the question is, why? did God do that because he's like, man, I don't know. Hopefully Jesus pulls this off. Like, I was getting pretty worried there for a minute. No, I don't know what Satan was thinking, but he didn't realize the truth, which I believe the truth is he led him to defeat the enemy.
Right.
So part of the victory of Joseph, I think, okay, this is my opinion, part of what could have easily been happening with the Joseph story, putting him into Potiphar's house, let's say, is, hey, look, I didn't put him there to see if he'd pass the test. And that could have been it, okay? But I feel like it was more like, no, I put him there to show the enemy who is boss, to prepare, to teach, and all of that, in addition to him, kind of passing tests or whatever. What do you think about that?
Yes. Well, and I also think that our lives are not, we don't own our lives. We're here to help each other. We're here for purposes to bring glory to God. And it isn't all just about our personal lives.
Right.
It's about how our lives affect others.
Right.
Others' lives.
Right. Yeah.
So, and that was largely what Joseph was going through.
Yeah. And think about it. Like you mentioned this already, Prudence, but think about this. Literally, I don't know how many, but let's just say hundreds of thousands of people's lives were saved. Maybe it was millions. I don't know how many people it was, but like the whole region was saved because of his wisdom. Like if he hadn't been in all the situations to where he was to interpret the dream, Pharaoh's dream, then he would not have been there to actually make the smart choices to make the conservation.
And all through his life, you can see that what the devil intended for bad to defeat him, God used.
Totally.
He completely turned it around, 100%.
Yeah.
I don't think the devil really knew.
Yep.
What, like...
So the devil's like smacking the metal on the anvil
doing,
over
but
and over
he
and over
was
again.
literally helping put him into a position of influence where he needed to be.
Yeah. So here the devil is hitting the metal on the anvil over and over and over again. And he thinks he's like beating it, but really the Lord is using it to shape it into what he needs it to be. So he's using all of those strikes. The enemy think he's defeating Joseph, but God's actually using it he's using the hammer blows to actually shape him into what he wants him to be.
Here's the kicker, though, is that we human beings, we have a choice on all of that.
Yeah.
Like Joseph could have committed suicide or just ran away.
Changed his mindset to a prison mindset.
Yeah, completely. He could have completely shut down.
Yeah.
And he chose not to.
Yeah.
And that is really important for all of us to remember, is that we get the choice on whether or not we want to participate in what God's doing.
Yeah. That is so good. It's so awesome. So I guess with all that in mind, as you find yourself, the reality is that I think a lot of people are finding themselves in Joseph's seasons. That's just the reality of where we are. And I think it's always been that way. I think it's always going to be that way, where things don't work exactly according to plan. But here's the deal. As you find yourself in those situations, just like what Joseph did, is you have to continue to maintain the kingdom mindset. Because if you maintain the palace mindset, then God can use all of those things to weave all of the experiences and whatever it needs to get you where he wants to take you. But if you lose the kingdom mindset, right, and go to a pauper mindset, because your situation that you're in would typically dictate that, now you've stepped away from the kingdom mindset and now you're no longer in a position to go where God needs to take you. So when you find yourself in these situations, which all people do, it's critical that you maintain the discernment to understand what God's really doing.
And sometimes you're not going to see what God's doing.
And sometimes you're not going to see what God's doing.
And you maintain it. You
And that's
maintain
okay.
your faith.
Like we're saying,
Regardless.
Joseph didn't know. Joseph did not know. So that would be our encouragement to you. is you find yourself in these situations, do whatever you need to continue to maintain the kingdom perspective. And through the kingdom perspective is how you're actually going to be able to continue to move towards the words and the promises and the things that God has given you. So, Prudence, this one was fun. I love it. I'm excited about all of season 3. We're going to see you guys on all these. If you have just seen this for the first time, you're not even sure, you got to go to eaglemountain.global, click on TV. You can see all of the last seasons, all the episodes of Together We Build, which is this amazing program. But also there's other really awesome programming there. There's really cool shows. You've got to check them out. We also have a 24/7 TV channel, eaglemountain.tv or eaglemountain.global/TV. So go check all that stuff out. But one more thing I want to ask you to do real quick before we wrap this up, which is if you could take a second and share this out on your social media, that'd be amazing. That's how we get this stuff out to the world. The other thing too is that creating all of this TV programming, all the stuff that we do, is very difficult, time consuming, expensive. So if you could take a moment, if this has blessed you, go over to the Give button on the Eagle Mountain website, click that and support this program and what we're doing here. That'll be amazing. Anything else, Prudence? Did I miss anything else, or is that it for this episode?
That's it for this episode.
That is it for this episode. Thank you so much, you guys. We will see you on the next one. See you around.
Thank you for watching Together We Build with Chris and Prudence. To learn more about this and other amazing programs, visit eaglemountain.global. To learn more about Chris and Prudence and the ministries they serve, visit chrisandprudence.com.